Welcome to Wake Up and Live with Christopher Flagg. This is a daily podcast to encourage and inspire godly living. Let's join in and listen to today's message.
Good morning. Thank you so much again for tuning in today. Today we're going to kind of continue on in the vein we started yesterday as we spoke about the prodigal love. And today I want to continue on with this. Rick Warren once said that fear is the self-imposed prison that will keep you from becoming what God intends for you to be. You must move against it with the weapons of faith and love. The most scared I've ever been was on a roller coaster. And I mean it. When one time my daughter, she loved to go on roller coaster rides. And this one time we decided I was going to take her to Disneyland. And so we went to Disneyland because she loved the rides. But to be honest, man, I grew up, I didn't like rides. I was afraid of rides. I didn't want to go on any rides. I didn't even really care. Even those little teacup spinners, I just didn't want it. Something about them, that uncertainty that I was just going to fall out and fall to the ground and all the stories you hear about it. But she wanted me to ride with her on this roller coaster. And I was like, let's be honest for a second. When I say I don't like roller coasters, I really don't like roller coasters. I'm fine with sitting on a swing or a log that gently slides into the water or in some colorful teacups maybe. But for the most part, I just really don't like rides. But my daughter, she really wanted to go on this ride. And here I am. I don't want to just say, we've came all this way. You go ahead and go do it by yourself. So finally we came to this one and to get up the courage. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. In the line waiting, and I'm sitting there saying, oh, God, help me. And I'm praying to myself, as crazy as it can be. I'm sure God is just laughing at me. But we get to the place, and we jump into the roller coaster. We're sitting in the back, and we start out. We just keep going up this hill, and it's going up and up and up. And as that keeps going up, my heart keeps pounding and pounding. I'm thinking, man, I've got to do something. I've got to change this around. And so we get up to the very top, and I just decide I'm just going to raise my hands high in the sky and just begin to scream and have fun and just take the enjoyment. We get up to the very top, and it's had this great, amazing view. And I just put up my hands, and as we go down and just began to just try to enjoy this awesome thing they call a roller coaster, I guess. But as it went on, and I'm there and I'm having this fun with my daughter, and she's just cracking up laughing as she's watching me, and we go all around through it. And at the end of it, you know what? I experienced something that if I'd allowed this fear to kind of continue to have in my life, I would have never have had this experience that with my daughter. That was so amazing just to do this. In fact, we went on that same roller coaster at least 3 or 4 more times, and it was amazing each time as I got better and kind of overcame this fear of rides, and trust me now, I'm not going to get on some of those other ones where your feet are dangling off. That just isn't going to happen. But I was able to kind of get past some things and go on some other stuff so I could experience this with my daughter. It's a memory that I will never forget. And that's why it's so important for us, because I think, so many times we don't really realize that I believe our fears and roller coasters have a lot in common, particularly when God's love is a part of it. What starts as ups and downs and uncertainty can quickly be overcome by excitement and contentment and joy. Why? Because when we step out in faith, our fear is gone. Having the courage to lean into the fears and helps us conquer it. When God's perfect love is a part of our lives, our fears have no place to reside, and we can enjoy the beautiful view, and we can enjoy the people around us, and we can enjoy the excitement of those things. And the Bible doesn't say that fear won't even ever exist, because it does, but it does say that it has no place in telling us how we should live. Fear is no match for God's perfect love. Fear is no match for God. So what's keeping you from being brave? What's keeping you from chasing your dreams and becoming the person God has called you to be? My insecurities and doubts constantly distract me from the truth that God gives me. But again and again, I'm reminded that the Bible tells us that perfect love casts out all fear. The fear of the unknown and the fear of what lies ahead. And as we learn to embrace the love of God, we gain the courage to step out in faith and embrace this wondrous journey of this Christian life. This might sound easier said than done, but I believe with the practice and experience, we can all come to the realization that stepping out in faith toward the will of God will always bring us closer to Him and closer to conquering our fears. Maybe you have a fear of relationships, of failure, of opinions of others, or starting your own company, or getting married and having kids, or traveling to the other side of the world. Maybe your fear is something that doesn't feel rational, such as heights, spiders, or the dark, but you've gone through something traumatic or paralyzing fear that has a grip on your life. Our fears occupy a vast spectrum from silly to serious, mild to severe, or temporary to long-term. And it's a good thing we don't have to let fear control the way we live our lives. You heard that right. Your fear doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to be permanent. It doesn't have to control you. It doesn't have a right to exist in your life when Jesus is there with you. Now, I'm not saying I have it all figured out. Trust me, I'm still working through my own fears, just as you are. The fear of what others will think about me, the fear of failure, the fear of not being good enough. But each and every moment I spend with God, a small piece of those fears are chipped away. In 1 John 4:18, we learn that there is no fear in love, because perfect love drives out fear, because fear has nothing to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. All things can be conquered with the love of God. How do we know this? Because the beautiful words of Scripture stated to be true. It's just that simple. When we go through life in the power of the love of God, discomfort, fear, and opposition will be matched with God's power and His favor. This love is a conqueror, and it will fight for you. Fear can paralyze even the bravest and strongest individuals. Fears cause us to sometimes doubt yourself and the opportunities that may come your way, to second guess your capabilities, to fall silent when you know that you should have been speaking up. We all deal with fear, but the way we respond to it can drastically change how it affects us. Alexander McLaren said this about fear, and John wrote about it in 1 John 4:18. John has been speaking of boldness, and the natural suggests its opposite, fear. Perfect love produces courage in the day of judgment because it produces likeness to Christ. Who is the judge? In my text, he explains and enlarges the statement, for there is another way in which love produces boldness, and that is by casting out fear. These two are mutually exclusive. The interest of one is for the other, notice, to quit. We cannot both love and fear for the same person or thing. Where love comes in, the darker form slips out the door, and where love comes in, it brings hand in hand itself courage with a radiant face. But boldness is the companion of love, only when love is perfect. For inconsistent are the two emotions are love in its earlier stages and lower degrees. It is often perturbed and dashed by the apprehensions and dread. Now, John is speaking about the two emotions in themselves, irrespective. So as far as his language go of the objects to which they are directed, what goes of the he is saying is true about love and fear, whatever or whoever may be loved or dreaded. But the context suggests that the application in his mind for it is boldness before him, about which he has been speaking. So it is love and fear directed towards God, which are meant in the text. The experience of hosts of professing Christians is only too forcible a comment upon the possibility of partial love lodging in the heart side by side of fellow lodgers, fear from whom it ought to be expelled. And that's what Alexander McLaren, that's kind of how he kind of sets it up. But time and time again in the Bible, we see people facing fear that warns them to keep from pursuing what God has called them to. Joshua battling the Amorites. You see that in Joshua 10 and 12. I mean, Moses looking over the Red Sea in Exodus, and Noah being told to build an ark in Genesis. I mean, these individuals could have let fear overcome them, but their love for the God pushed them to trust, right? A God in turn took care of them in the face of fear. I mean, the sun stood still, the waters parted, Noah's family was saved. God was there, guiding them every step of the way, even the steps that weren't made clear in the moment. We fear because we're human, but when we choose to dwell in God's love because we are His children, we must understand that God's supports and assists us in the face of fear are still available and true today. God isn't just watching and standing next to you in this journey called life. He's leading the front lines. Don't be afraid or discouraged. Deuteronomy 31:8 tells us, "For the Lord will personally go ahead of you. He will be with you. He will never fail you nor abandon you." I mean, this is a powerful truth and both assuring and comforting. God will go ahead of us. God will be with us. God will not abandon us. We have no need to worry about the present or the future because God, who is in the outside of time itself, has already been where we are going. He's all powerful, all knowing, all forgiving. God knows what it will take place in our lives, and we can rely on His love in the times of fear and trouble. When we put our lives in God's hands, we can rest, knowing that He has everything under control. Now, this doesn't mean that fear will be absent from our thoughts or that we're no longer allowed to fear. Rather, fear no longer needs to control the way we live, dream, speak, act, because fear sits under the colossal majesty of God Himself. We have the opportunity each and every day to live out the love of God, even when fear might push us to do otherwise. So today, I just encourage you to allow the love of God. I know today you may be facing some fears, and I face fears each day just like you. But when we allow this great love of God to come in, it is more powerful than any fear that you could experience, any fear that could come into your life. So today, live in the love of God. Cast out all that fear and anxieties because God wants you to push through to the things and the dreams and to speak the words that you have today. And today, if you come into an experience today that you're facing fear, just pray, Lord, allow your love to come into me right now and overcome this fear that I'm facing. So again, thank you so much for tuning in today. Again, wake up and live empowered, blessed, and loved by God so that you could reach your fullest potential and really move into what God has called you to do. And it starts with knowing that love is greater than fear. God bless. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Thank you for tuning in today for Wake Up and Live. Join us each day for a new inspiring message. Also check out our Saturday morning's Word and Worship for 30 minutes of getting refueled, plus our Sunday sermon series on the seasons of life.